Alrighty. What is Meta? What monopoly do they have? I would say Meta has a monopoly on perceived digital trust. Their network effect and their interconnectedness with our friends and families most specifically has created the idea of security. This is why people use Facebook to secure payments, to secure going on other websites. That's what they're holding. They're holding trust. They've built a system of trust. Now, if that system of trust, by my example, is completely untrustworthy, I've watched all my friends and family not do that, basically distrust me on issues and concepts of the highest importance, then that's fraud. It doesn't matter whether they go to the gateways of payments and privacy. It's fraud. If the government hasn't thought that my content on social media is enough to warrant a discussion, then Facebook has broken its vow of trust that it supposedly had with its users. So what is it then? And now this is where it comes to the really important issues. Censorship was used during the mandates on these platforms, all of them. Censorship and attempted steering, conversation and the reputation, the exposure of certain individuals and certain ideological concepts, certain political stances, were steered. Now, I need to know who Facebook, who Meta, who were their clients during that period. Was it their individual users who they have payment and privacy and trust agreements with to use on the whole internet? Or was it the governments of each individual region collectively putting pressure on these? Or was it the governments of the selected ownership region of the United States? Were United States civil politics, political disagreements projecting out on their global trusted network to homogenise the entire world down to who is currently sitting in the White House in the United States? Or was it each individual region? Did they have back-end options on the network to add this censorship in? Take something like the vaccine. Let's put that aside, okay, because it's to do with our bodies. There's been billions and billions of dollars spent on it. But what about we talk about chemical fertiliser and chemical pesticides in our soil? Can we have that discussion? Is Facebook just a projected network, fraudulently claiming to be a trusted network? So much so that we'll put our credit card in there, we'll put our family and friends in there, we'll display photographs of our family, we'll install our whole lives on there. But is that just entrapped in a stock market paradigm in which it's constantly rubbing shoulders with large chemical companies, large finance companies, large... And then I would say that trust system is completely gone. And so I'd say it's globally the largest case of fraud ever instituted. It's an immediate global catastrophe of finance, of information, of trust. And like we're seeing in Tasmania now, where there's this race because this coup has happened, that coup better be rigid. This is why I've said I want to see proof in Tasmania that the governor has the blessing of the king. All these things are what we used to do. A Facebook message has replaced so many points of confirmation. And it has made it its mission to supersede all those regulatory procedures. You know, think of old time, we'd have stamps and seals and guards and postal officers and things like that. All this system, even things like handwriting and stuff like that. If the system itself has fraudulently positioned itself in all regions, then there's a really big problem. But I don't want to go after Facebook. I don't want that to be the issue. Facebook, in my interpretation, was a place where people would emerge, people would gather. Now, Facebook has never actually prevented me from posting. Something has gone awry in the way that it is being perceived by all the people around me. And then that would be an independently geographical phenomenon, which that is my claim against the West Australian Labor Party-led government, that you have enacted a unbroken policy of discrimination and of ostracism, and you are still doing it. If this ends up putting scrutiny on a company that connects billions of people around the world, so this is trusted enough, so billions of dollars of advertising money, of people's family photographs, all these things, I would say that network is far stronger. And if you combined all the interactions on that, it has far more structure than the West Australian government does. Now, I'm not saying I want Meta to take over the West Australian government. But I'm saying, why is the conversation not being elevated in my network to push to that political discussion? That's what it's exposing. Non-militarily, not even aligned with the military in the United States. The United States isn't here with an aircraft carrier. The United States hasn't, well, its ships are here. I've seen the volume turned up. I've seen the temperature turned up on this social media debate. I'm not jumping off a ship like that. With billions of interconnected users that have their entire family photographs, their entire financial system, their entire privacy system, all entrusted to one company, to a government that put me in prison for sharing a photograph on that platform in order to bring up a political debate between a mother and a father and their children in this geographical region. It wasn't Facebook that did that. If you turn a political debate between parents into a never-ending feud, there at all points, to utilise the mistreatment of those children, the chaos occurring, then what on earth are you actually doing? And I'm claiming that you are not in alignment with anything to do with the establishment of that government. So you have hijacked, as the West Australian Labor Party, you have hijacked the West Australian government buildings, the West Australian government property, in order to have this standoff. And now your only attempt at legitimacy is to try and claim that your environment is better than Facebook, is better than Instagram on a social basis. Well, it's already too late. You've already imprisoned me. You've already protected people that were actively trying to kill me. You've protected them and allowed them to do it. You've shielded my children by their hostage takers. No one in the world knows who Roger Cook or Rita Satriani, whatever her name is, Safrati, Rita. No one knows who you are. No one in the world knows who Anthony Albanese is. If Mark Zuckerberg rocked up here tomorrow with a private army that he could afford, he would own Western Australia. It'd be no different than Flinders rocking up. Sterling. Really. His network's already here. It's already more trusted than I trust Facebook and Instagram more than I trust the last West Australian election. I can tell you that much. I trust Facebook and Meta more than I do the Apple Corporation and the Apple network. Because this seems to be the battle. This battle is between Apple and the smartphone, which was easily seen to be an exact retaliatory measure towards Facebook. By who, though? It could be argued that my issue with the scale, that was driven by Apple. Between, say, Microsoft and Facebook, there's no doubt that we'd be in a world of appropriate scale devices, of appropriate human-to-human contact. Apple has not specialised in this. Apple has specialised in control, in shrinking down our communication. Snapchat is a direct response to Facebook and to Meta's products, Instagram. And it uses privacy to do this. Well, my privacy was invaded by the people that put me in jail. My privacy was invaded by the West Australian Police. My privacy was invaded by the West Australian Premier when he wished to publish the fact whether we had a vaccine or not. A photo of me, a bad photo with a goofy face on the internet. I care far less about that than I do about what type of chemical is injected at gunpoint into my arm and my children's arms. Three years of constant political debate, unanswered. Because you're showing where you're going to land. You are trying to disregard this because of where it is being posted. Well, it's being posted on a lot of places. Google and Meta do not have a good arrangement. When I post on YouTube, that's with Google. When I post that link to Facebook, that's on Facebook. I do it on Facebook because that's supposedly where my friends and family are. There should be a network effect if someone is claiming that their children are being held hostage on a social network, but it's not being because the West Australian government keeps throwing this platform and this avenue of communication into the recycling bin on their Apple computer. Yet if I do this in the physical world, then I'll have all types of things like anti-association rules thrown against me or something fictitious like that. The West Australian government is making it very clear what is accessible. It's accessible to have Labor nationally push into a small island at the bottom of Australia, formerly known as Tasmania, push in there with a Labor-led coup to a Governor-General with potential links to a global pharmaceutical network after this global vaccine rollout, with a psychiatric conflict of interest in almost every level, for Seven West to fly in there and commandeer that state's media in order to appease some type of coloniser-China partnership, which we all throw Facebook in the bin as the enemy. And you really think that's going to work? Some people in the United States are trying to throw monopoly laws at Facebook right now. And I've myself declared it as a concentration camp. The only thing I'm not sure about is whether Mark Zuckerberg built that concentration camp. I find that highly unlikely. Or whether the government's failure to accept these platforms, because it puts pressure on their practices that won't fare well with good scrutiny, that could possibly autonomously emerge on these platforms. Everything in the digital, there's two schools. There's one school that says it's just the same, and there's another school that says it's particularly different and it's evil. There is no way that any individual, my age, with my experience, with the level of professionalism that I show every day, would have been ignored for 3 years if they were doing this every day. In any time in history. So it is the Labor Party, the Labor government nationally, that is failing to adapt to this. Facebook is a publicly held company. How much of Australian superannuation is sitting in Meta? And how much of it is sitting in somewhere like Pfizer? If that money is being used on a PR campaign, on a control campaign, on a distribution campaign, on a terrorist fear campaign through the mainstream media channels, then in a free market capitalist society, it would only be to be expected that a competitor would emerge within that same market. I would say, and I would posit, that that competitor is Meta. So I would say that Meta is not acting as a monopoly. Meta at the moment, in my opinion, is acting as a parachute, as a self-defense device, as a self-defense network to secure and defend individuals that are being victimised by other portions of that marketplace. Other portions that a significant portion of those acts of discrimination are actually coming from socialised healthcare. That every Australian citizen, or almost every Australian citizen, is forcibly having a relationship with from birth, by mandate, by decree, by these same governments. In my life, the damage that has come from being a participant and a community member of Meta platforms such as Facebook and Instagram is almost nil. And counting now the mistreatment I've received from a socialised medical system in this country is incalculable by my own decree. And this comes back to this mandate situation, doesn't it? If I can't decide what to put in my body, that means I can't decide how I was treated, how I am allowed to interpret my treatment by a socialised medical system. It means that we're not allowed to criticise it. Because that is the core of the debate, was criticism. I didn't go out and actively try and persuade or dispersuade, I think that's the right way to say it, people from getting a vaccine. I was trying to protect both my ability to have that anonymous and my ability to leave and to return to the country or the state of my birth if I didn't participate in this socialised medical system's interpretation of the best strategy. Because in my interpretation of my own existence, that medical conglomerate's socialised medical system has mistreated me, has mistreated my entire family. I don't expect to live in Facebook. I'm not going to live in Instagram. I'm using it as a distribution service and as a storage service that extends out beyond my geographical region, because I believe if I continue down this trajectory that my opinions and my beliefs will be used against me by the exact people that are claiming to be governing over me. So like I said, Facebook and Instagram to me is a parachute. It's a bunker. It's a time capsule. It's a message in a bottle, potentially. It's up to the West Australian government and the larger National Australian Labor Party government to decide what its next moves are. I'm not asking you to load up every single government issue into Meta and Instagram. I'm asking you to use it as a recruitment tool to recruit the future leaders that will hopefully, with good conversation, good dialogue, good reasoning skills, good observation, good interaction, good network, all the things that we should be having, will be able to repair the damage that this closed-mindedness and this fixed ideological strategies by both parties has led to. Facebook is like grass, like turf. That's what it is, Facebook and Instagram. It's not a monopoly. Every sporting oval around the world uses some interpretation of grass or turf. I suppose long ago there was certain places that had grass and turf. There were certain places that maybe had sand or clay that they would play games like soccer on or football. And then it was decided that there would be an international standard of sporting fields. Certain sports went to AstroTurf, certain sports went to grass and turf, but it's flat green stuff that they play that game on. There's the odd thing like tennis on clay tennis and hard court and turf. That's what Facebook is in this model. Or it's not. It seems like the market agrees that it is. If billions of people across the world are putting their most intimate possessions in, if I am leaving my house in a fire, I'm taking my family photographs. Well, thank God that Facebook now is safely holding that. Who owns that property of the photograph? In the West Australian government's opinion, the mother of the children owns the photographs. and can use them to send the father of the children to jail. Even though there are shared family photographs taken by the extended family that were uploaded on her Facebook that now she has taken away from me. She's actively trying to destroy the history of my family. Not in the long term, in the short term. My oldest child is 18 years old. What type of damage is that going to do? I can tell you because it was done to me by a socialised medical system that was massively flawed, because of course it is. In the socialist system, there is one thing chosen and then everybody does that. In the capitalist system, there is lots of things and you decide what you do. So by its very nature, the mandates were a socialist mechanism of power concentration. If I leave this country, all my content is securely held with Meta. That shows who I have put my trust in this situation. Meta is no more a monopoly than the global financial situation that also trusts it to use to verify their payments or to advertise on. A healthy government, a vigorous government, a stable government, a government that can be trusted into the long term will not be affected by a thriving, flourishing conversation to be had by its citizens. That's the Australia I was born into. That's the Australia that I was told, and this is when maybe schools were a little bit better then, I was told that that was what we were supposed to be doing. I may have been rebellious in my youth, and I was quite critical of things, but I knew that. But that's not what this was. I was attempting to have political discussion, not even in government, between two parents. If the government steps in the way of political discussions, political preparation, life preparation, financial preparation, health preparation, if it steps in and adjudicates, kicks the father out and appeases the mother and her new husband that has now 3 and counting violence restraining orders, I think we can pretty much see who the violent individual is that started my whole personal convict journey. And I'm still waiting for my apology from the West Australian government, from the West Australian police. Where is it? Because not only was I in active criticism, active journalist activities, active defence, active preparatory, active educational preparations for my children, all within the Meta platform. I'm a citizen of Meta. I'm an exile of Western Australia. It's yet to be seen whether I'm an exile of Australia under this Albanese government. I guess we'll have to just wait and see.